So heads, you'll get the first question. Tails, you'll get the first question. It's heads. Okay, so let's get to it.
Okay.
So Denny, an unusual feature of Mason County is the 3 urban growth areas, and only one of which is incorporated, and that would be Shelton. And not all of that urban growth area is incorporated around the city of Shelton. So that puts the county in the position of having to provide infrastructure for areas that would normally be serviced by a municipal government. So the Growth Management Act requires that UGAs, or urban growth areas, be provided with city-level services at some position. So as a county commissioner, how would you propose meeting that requirement while balancing the needs of the unincorporated areas of the county?
Balancing the needs to meet the requirements of the Growth Management Act against the...
Correct,
okay.
yes.
Okay. Thanks for the question.
Good summary, by the way, too.
I think that it's important to understand that there are things that we're doing in county government over which we have complete authority, and there are things where we are obligated to by state law. So we have to keep that in mind. If we are to modify the situation in any of the UGAs, that requires that we do it at a state level, because it requires that we deal with the Growth Management Act. So in terms of balancing the priorities, I believe that Mason County has 2 areas that are not incorporated, Belfair and Allen and Belfair are not at the point by way of their population that they can become incorporated at the moment. There's a certain population requirement before they can become incorporated. So I think that we need to be clear that until and unless these 2 areas are incorporated, there is an obligation on the part of the county to assist in the provision of the services. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Our time hasn't run out yet.
It's okay. I'm
You're
done.
done. Okay, so the same question to you, Randy.
Well, first of all, the RCWs don't actually require that they provide that service. So the actual RCW requires that they plan for like sewer. It's going to be extremely necessary that it be there, but the RCWs require that you plan for sewer. They require that you plan for funding sewer. But there is no rule right at this moment that says that you have to have that on the ground if you have a UGA. And one of the biggest, most important things that you're going to face, though, is not that you have it, but when you do, that it's affordable, because that's going to be the main key. We cannot have growth in our UGAs if we don't have that infrastructure. Although I'm not a fan of what's been going on with the Belfair sewer, it is extremely, extremely necessary for us to be able to bring businesses in. Currently in Mason County, if a company wants to come in, we have a shortage of land, believe it or not, that is available for building because they don't have the infrastructure. If a company wants to come in and they need sewer, water, and all the necessities, we don't even have enough 5-10 acre tracts that can provide that to offer them locations, let alone anything large like 20, 50, or 100 acre tracts, as we've seen as we've learned at the EDC. In order to get these things done, though, we have to be aware of keeping it affordable, like I said, and only planning for what's absolutely necessary. Not everything we can get, and we shouldn't dance for a grant in order to get as much as we can, as big as we can, unless, of course, that grant's going to cover everything. Because if it's only going to cover part, you've got a huge debt that you have to cover afterwards, and as what's happened in our sewer. Right now, we are over $1 million backwards each year just for our debt repayment over the actual cost of maintenance and operation for the 400 plus ERUs that we have. So in order to do it, we have to structure affordable services in the UGA. This way we can go ahead and bring businesses that will help pay for those services in the UGA and keep it in a cycle that can continue to grow.
Okay, you have a minute to follow up.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that are important with regard to the development of our own UGA here in Belfair. We don't currently have what I wish we did have, and I would work to generate, is a comprehensive plan for the development of the UGA and for the greater county. We don't have a strategy for development in the county. So a lot of things that happened because there isn't a plan, and we just go forward in whatever direction is available. If we had a plan with some goals that we could agree on, they would provide some direction for us in terms of making decisions for the future. The other thing with the sewer is that the biggest problem that I see is that there is not an adequate funding base to provide support for those people who are obligated to hook up to the sewer. So I think we could benefit by exploring the possibility of block grants for the hookup and or a revolving loan fund to help people pay for the hookup.
Okay, and you have 60 seconds to wrap this topic up.
We do have a comprehensive plan. We have a facility comprehensive plan. I'm on the chair of the Planning Commission. We're working on that right now. And the thing about that comp plan that's extremely important is that you stick to it. For example, we're talking about the Belfair sewer again. That would have been a great idea for 1/4 the size of what they're doing, maybe even less than that. The very bare minimum of flow necessary to operate the system that we created up there is 4 times the size of Belfair. We started chasing the money so much that we grew a Cadillac when we literally needed a Toyota, if even that. And if we can stick to the comp plans that already exist, we will definitely be better off. We just have to realize that when we say it, this is what we need, that's all we need. We don't have to go crazy.
Okay, so this is kind of a follow-up to that question. So as we take a look at my script, so municipal services, what is next in terms of a utility infrastructure for Belfair urban growth? Is there a near-term need for extending the existing sewer to unserved areas? And if so, how do you think it should be funded? And if not, why not?
Okay, this is a heavy, big question because that is on the lips of everybody that lives out here and has to deal with this. Currently, like I said, we've built a system that is so big that we can't possibly make it work. We have to shut down parts of it to keep it operating. So obviously, we are going to have to grow. Currently, we've been looking at what's called Phase 2. Now, bear in mind, that is a great place to build, and it does have a lot of opportunities to build. There's a lot of lands out there for building residential. But the thing is the people that live out there cannot handle that burden. And yes, we need to continue to move forward, but if we go down like Phase 2 and take these grants, for example, we may collect $2 million, but in order to do it and actually put the pipe down there, we're going to have to take another $8 million in debt. Now, you put $8 million in debt, you put a greater burden on those that you're going to have to service again. With 400, so you pick up 500, another 100 customers. You can't spread that kind of debt off. What we need to do is we need to look to go up Highway 3. That's a place where the commercial cores can come in. They're the people that can come in with one business and bring you 30 ERUs. That's like having 30 residences, but with one building. By looking to do that and stopping what we have now so we don't take on any more debt because we're already going to be collapsing within a couple of years if we don't do something, by allowing us to just get it on the other side of the railroad tracks, allowing them to connect as they go, we could even put together a type of a latecomer process where if we get one investor, one person that has property up there decides to put in the pipe, we can watch over it and allow them to get their money out through a latecomer process for everybody that hooks up on the way. But right now, without that process set up, without that ability, there's no reason why they would take that risk of losing all that money. So the next step is to go up Highway 3 to the commercial core that is available, the only place that we're going to be able to put any type of new building. And also remembering, even though we have it down here, anything you build down below, you're going to have to tear down to replace first. Okay,
and you have 2 minutes to make your statement, Denny.
Okay, thank you. I think that the issue of the sewer and where do we go, well, infrastructure and where we go next, I think that's important to understand that the sewer, and I think everybody agrees with this, is that it's been over-designed. The wastewater treatment plant is much bigger than it needs to be. But it's there, and we can't unring that bell. So the question is, how do we support it? When you design a system like this sewer, one of the things that the design components are included are the fact that it's built for a certain number of customers. So that if we are going to have a sewer, we have to have X number of users of the sewer in order for it to operate efficiently. I'm concerned that if we don't go forward with some certainty on the sewer, we're going to leave those businesses and residents that are already connected up to the sewer holding the bag for the cost of it. And I think we need to get more users hooked up. Certainly, I think that there is Phase 2 and Phase 3 and Phase 4 of the original plan. Maybe we need to look at the priorities and go to other places besides Phase 2 first, do Phase 3, Phase 4, and then come back and do Phase 2. But I think what we need is a plan that makes sense and funding that's certain before we go forward.
Okay. And you have a minute to either rebut or add to your statement.
Funding, again, is the most important aspect that we have to remember. And if we continue to try and go down to, even with the hookups, you're not going to cover the cost of it. If you're looking at $8-10 million, you're going to pick up $1.5 million in people for their fees for hooking up. You're still going to end up with a lot of debt, and that makes it more expensive in the long run. But financing is important. We need to refocus our financing from places like the 09 funds and the REIT funds. Right now, I'm on the Planning Commission. I'm looking at some stuff. We're looking at spending another $500,000 to do some upgrades on parks. Infrastructure, some of the REIT funds were allowed to be used for parks, but the allowed to and should is two different things. Those REIT funds should go back to infrastructure, should be used to pay down and work on some of that debt, because we're not going to grow out of it. You're not going to pick up 100 homes that put $8-10 million in debt and all of a sudden everything's going to be better. It's going to be worse. You can't just grow out of it. We have to pay for it too.
Okay. And you have 60 seconds to reply or add.
I just mentioned earlier, and I want to reinforce this, I think the issue that we all need to be aware of is that the pain of the sewer is with the individual residences and businesses that have to hook up to it. And what I think is important for us to do is look at creative ways for us to provide funding so that no individual gets strapped with a debt they can't afford just to get hooked up to a sewer that is important for the whole community.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get back to public safety here. Since the sheriff and many of the other public safety officers in Mason County are elected on their own right, the responsibility that the county commissioners have are essentially through the budget process. In helping them out. So there are times when there are as many as maybe as few as two deputies on the roads in Mason County. So given the fact that you folks have to work with other elected officials to solve some of those solutions, number one, how would you see working with the sheriff and law and justice? And number two, where would you try to look to possibly either sustain or increase funding for law and justice?
Okay, well, I think that law enforcement is a critical part of what the county does. I think we have very good department now with the Sheriff's Department. We also have other law enforcement entities in the county and they all work quite well together, actually, thanks a lot to the work the sheriff has done. We have two tribal police groups. We have the City of Shelton and we have the Washington State Patrol, in addition to our own county sheriff and his staff. So I think that we need to do what we can within the funds that are available to support law enforcement. And in particular, with the case of the county, it's the sheriff's office that we need to support. But I have to be straight about this. There's no way that we can pay for something if we don't have the money for it. So one of the tough issues with law enforcement is finding the money to pay for additional personnel if we go ahead and have additional personnel. One way to get around or get back into the issue more and provide support to the sheriff is to put the public back in public safety. We have to keep in mind that public safety is not just law enforcement. It's fire and emergency services, it's Department of Public Works, it's the Department of Public Health. Those agencies are also involved in public safety. But I think there's more that we can do as communities and as individuals to put the public more back into the role of public safety. We have some neighborhoods where we have very good neighborhood watch programs and others where we don't. So if we were taking a little bit more personal care of each other we might be in a position to reduce the need for as many law enforcement personnel as we might need.
Great. Thank you. And Randy, same question. 2 minutes.
Either way, we are faced with it. It is in front of us. The crime is terrible. We all know it. We have a lot of situations out here, especially in the North End, when we make a phone call and we can't even get somebody to show up, period. Not in an hour, not in 2 hours. They won't even show up, period, because there's so many other things going on and so few on the street. This is in my opinion, the top priority for all of us. We're facing a time right now where we've had a half a dozen murders in this county as of recent. I can't think of anything more important. My father taught me something when I was young. My father taught me never gamble with what you can't afford to lose. My family, your family, is something we can't afford to gamble with and can't afford to lose. We must take care of protection first. Sheriff Salisbury's up here right now, and I'll tell you one of the things I'm going to tell him, that when we do get in, I do expect to try and bring some funds to him. There's different ways in the way of bringing forward grant money off of roads and stuff, but we're going to negotiate, my friend, because I'm going to tell you what I'd also like to see is some of the officers that are behind the desk on the road backing up some other ones. I'd even like to see our sheriff out there on the road with a light on top of his car. But I do respect you immensely, but it will be a negotiation. I want more officers on the street, because if we can bring them on the street at the basic level, that's where you're going to stop the crime before you have to go in afterwards and try and solve the crime. If we can get them to bring back cars with lights on the top that let every whatever out there know that those officers are out there. When Casey first came here, he had some support from the commission. I remember he actually brought them out in force, and it changed our community for a while. All of you that can remember a few years back when he did that, our crime rate dropped. It was beautiful. And I'll tell you, we need to have him do that again, but we need to get him the tools, and we need to negotiate a little bit, because we need to make it easier for him to be less political, and he does have to be political. He has to fight for every dollar he has to get. We need to make his job less political and more on the sheriff aspect of it, to where he can go on the street. But to do that, we have to give him the tools he needs.
Okay, Denny, you have 60 seconds to respond or add.
Great. I think that there's a lot to be said for the issue of public safety. I think we are all concerned about it. I think that we can look at what is our role in that process, as I mentioned before. I think the issue of where does the money come from to provide for additional law enforcement personnel is a challenging question for the county commissioners to deal with. We had a question earlier on about a 1.8 million overrun. How are we going to do with that and pay for additional deputies? I think it's a matter of getting the county commissioners and the sheriff and the law enforcement community together and work it out. I've seen a lot of difficulty and a lot of controversy between the sheriff and the commissioners. I think we can get to a point where we work more closely together than as adversaries.
Okay, and 60 seconds to wrap up this question.
Okay, I can tell you, like I said, negotiation is a very important thing. There is some funds out there. It's just deciding what they're going to be used for. Earlier we talked about REIT funds, real estate excise tax, supposed to be used for infrastructure. I'd like to see a 24-hour cop shop here in Belfair. I mean, one that's open there and has a body in there all the time. What people don't know is we're spending that REIT fund for parks, that some of those REIT funds could go right for sheriff facilities. That's one of the things it's actually in there for. But again, we have to do the work to find that money and then negotiate some of it off with him. Because I'll tell you right now, those that are in his group, he's got a group of people that follow him and support him. If you've ever been to one of the sheriff advisory meetings, he's got great communication with them, and he does understand the pulse of what's going on. He also has people in his department that know about funding. I'll guarantee you, because we've had different conversations. We need to sit down and find some of that money. As a port commissioner, I actually talked to some of the other port commissioners about getting together so we could hire just one, on a contract. Just finding different ways to get it done.
Okay, so let's move on to the next exciting topic, economic development. So, there have been some businesses in Mason County that have ceased operation, have either left for one reason or another, and that leaves Mason County residents with less local services, fewer local jobs, and of course the county with less revenue. So as a county commissioner, what would you do or could you do to encourage businesses to locate in Mason County, and which would provide services and jobs?
First of all, I miss Crazy Eric's. I miss it badly. I would love to sit down. Do you remember their 5 burgers? Never mind.
Now I'm thinking about thanks a lot.
Aside from all that, it is necessary. We all, in different levels of government, I hear the term living wage job, living wage job. I was taught something a long time ago. A living wage job is a job that actually allows you to feed your family. You ain't going to tell me that somebody making $9 an hour going home and feeding their family, that's not a living wage job, and it's not something that we should work for. It should be appreciated when we have it. You're not going to convince me when they're bringing Christmas presents home to their kids that it's not important. It is. And when we use up that lower-end workforce, the value of the other employees go up, supply and demand. Now, what we need to do is actually pretty simple, especially for Belfair. We need to open the UGA. Right now, the urban growth area, our whole urban growth area, the place we want the businesses to go, the place we want to expand, is closed for business. It just is. Like I said, going down Highway 3 right here where you have the sewer, you're going to have very little net gain, because in order to gain something, you have to tear something down. We don't have any other land right there, if you'll notice that you got a hill on one side and wetlands on the other. What we need to do is we need to open our UGAs, allow them to bring in stuff with the septics and stuff until we can get the sewer up to them. Every job, everything that would be able to come in would be a benefit to our community, and a rising tide floats all boats, remember. So that one job for a Crazy Eric's, that meant a lot to somebody, and if those jobs were there, somebody else's job would be worth a little bit more. So open the urban growth area.
Great. Now I'm thinking about fries all night.
As you should.
Oh, goodness. An extra Lipitor when I go to bed afterwards, too. So, Denny, the same question.
Well, we do miss Crazy Eric's, and all I can say is thank God for Bubba's. They're doing a great job, and thanks to those brothers for doing the work they're doing. In terms of economic development, I think that I want to look at it from a slightly different perspective. I think that one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that the things that attract, what is it that attracts a business to come to an area? One of the things that attracts it is infrastructure, and we are woefully inadequate at the moment with infrastructure here. The sewer is underway, not completed. We are going to do some work on widening Route 3, but if I am a company and I'm bringing my business here and I'm going to have employees, one of the things they're going to be looking at is, what is the community like? What are the schools like? Are there trained personnel here that could do the work that I'm going to bring into the community? And I think the answer to those is that we have work to do on improving the school system here and broadening the kinds of services that the options that we provide to our students. Such things as I would like to see a STEM school here, a school that focuses on science, technology, engineering, and math. I think we have the capacity to do something like that. But I think there are also a couple of programs that could be done at the community college level that would create a trained base of personnel that could then work effectively in a new business were to come here. So I think that and programs like Washington Cash would train people to set up a small business and to operate it effectively. Those kind of programs need to be expanded in Mason County. We've had one here this past year, and it was very successful. And if you talk to any of the people who were in that course, 3 or 4 of them are already doing a business. I think we need to do more of that.
Okay. You have 60 seconds for respond or rebuttal.
I'm also on the board of directors for the Economic Development Council in Mason County. And one of the things that we're looking at now is the different types of economic leakage we have in Mason County. And you'd be amazed at all the different things that we need here that we're not doing here and that we're losing the money of. Right now, we talked about Crazy Eric's. So right now we have a Monster Burger leakage that's going to Kitsap County because they actually still have Crazy Eric's out there. But as far as economic development, another thing that we need to touch on and make sure is covered, again, is something we've talked about before, utilities. As a port commissioner, they give you quite a bit of education about bringing businesses in. There's 2 things that a business looks for when it looks to relocation, or the 2 most important things, I should say, are an educated workforce, which we're going to be limited what we can do as commissioners because that's not our bid. That's not our job. But the cost of utilities. We do have something we can do about that. Right now, we have exorbitant costs in utility fees here. You guys seen what happened to Belfair Water with their 34% increase with another, 13 or 14% coming next year. You see what's happening with the sewer.
A lot of stuff there. So you have 60 seconds to rebut or add to? Denny?
Yeah, the point about the educated workforce is one that I think is also, I've already mentioned that. I think it's really important to have qualified people to do the work. I think that I don't want to sell short the potential of county commissioners to have an impact on this. We're not responsible for education, but we can certainly support efforts to create educational programming that addresses the kinds of needs that we have in the county. I think we have some terrific students in this community who would benefit from an opportunity to get into an advanced study mode and work on subject matter that they're not able to do at the moment. So those kinds of things are ways that we can build the community that will attract businesses to come here because they have good schools and trained workforce.
Okay, thank you very much. So here we go on to our last issue, and once again we'll be having a statement from either candidate and then follow-up comments on that topic. So this is one thing that I find fascinating about the county commission position. It's such a broad position. You're talking about things from utilities to roads to health to law and justice and all that. Well, here's another one for you. So, Denny, we'll start with you. What is your position on the senior center in North Mason, and could you as a commissioner or the county do something to help make it a reality?
Well, I am 100% in support of whatever we can do to create a senior center here in North Mason, and I take my hat off to Patty and her crew and United Way and all those people that have been working to generate funding for the senior center that we're having here, and hats off to Olympic Federal for their big boost yesterday to provide support for that program, put them over the top so they can go forward. One of the things we need to keep in mind is that this community, this county, has an unusually high number of senior citizens. And I think that we need to be thinking about how do we better take care of those people and how do we look forward for their future. So I think that Mason County should be thinking about how can we develop additional long-term care facilities, how can we create additional adult homes for people to reside in, and additional low-income housing for people who are on a fixed income. I spent some time doorbelling down in Shelton last week, and I went to a low-income housing area for senior citizens where they have a single-bedroom apartment, quite small but quite nice. And I asked them, each person that I talked to, I asked them, how does it to like to live here? And they absolutely loved it because they were independent. The bus stop was right across the street. They could go into town if they wanted to. They were free to move around, and they had their independence. I think that and some kind of program where we work together with master gardeners and with senior citizens and maybe even bring young people into the picture, where we can create what I would say would be legacy gardens where people can grow their own food, do some canning and preserving and so on. Those kinds of things would be beneficial for our seniors.
Okay, and Randy.
Without a doubt, this is an absolute. It's actually such a simple question. I'm not going to waste a lot of time on it because without a doubt, we've got to take care of our seniors. It's one of the things that we have an opportunity to. The county's actually been real good about trying to help and provide that. And I just need to tell you right now, I will stand with you, Patty, and everybody else as we start to put that stuff together as the options come forward. I'm going to take the rest of my time and I do want to say another reason why I want it. It's a little bit for myself. My mother-in-law lives with me. I'd love to have a place where I could take her and drop her off. But aside from that, I'm going to take the rest of my time to say something about Terry Jeffries made a comment earlier about open government and being able to communicate. And I'm telling you right now, having those kind of meetings, having work study sessions is extremely important. I do it as a port commissioner all the time. And Terry, I don't see you wherever you're at. I'll be your second vote. There's no problem there. We've talked about it before. You have to have those meetings so you can actually have a free flow of communication, and then you can have an impact, because we can't work together if you can't sit and talk to each other, and we can't come up with game plans to fix the problems in front of us if we don't talk to each other. And she may know something I do not, or the others may know something I do not. I've got no problem with it. That's called being invested time-wise into your job, and I have no problem doing that if anybody knows me. So I'll be your second vote, Terry.
Okay, follow-up or rebuttal?
Yeah, I just want to, I'm going to stay on the topic. The topic was how do we deal with our senior care? And we have a good example in this county already, actually in the North County, and at the Haven in Allen. They have a wonderful senior care center there. I think that that kind of service and the kind of personnel that work there is a kind of educational opportunity that we could also be thinking about to bring additional jobs to the county. If we had a program that trained caregivers to a degree that they could work in senior care facilities, I think we could become a model in the state for senior care, and I think that's something we should strive to do.
Okay. And that should be my last checkoff for our gentleman from District 1. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jenny and Andy. Good job. Thank you. I want you to know that Herb Gerhardt spent a great amount of time engineering these signs so they would stand up perfectly. So good job, Herb.